Hey, hello, you're stuck in trial with Wolf. Go a few minutes riffing on IT and IT security. Today looking at yet another ElasticSearch breach with job searching data. I call it the SMH, right? The smack my head, the SMH of the week. There's always something going on every single week. They're just like, why now? And most recently it was this site that again stood up Elasticsearch engine and again left it wide open and again got discovered and again had a whole bunch of job searcher information, including what type of positions people are looking for, where they're working currently, and job salary. If this sounds familiar, this is like the ladders, which happened maybe a month ago, all over. So the tip for you is this: you need to start looking for these Elasticsearches, much like we started to do with the S3 buckets when bucket after bucket after bucket was exposed. We need to start wrapping around detective controls that looks in your environment to see if you have these, if they're being stood up and if they're being protected. Let me tell you what happened, and I'll throw a link in comments so you can read about it. But Tetrion, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, Tetrion stood up a job search portal. They created this Elasticsearch. They dumped in a whole bunch of information. It looks like this wasn't even information that job seekers had given to this organization. It looks like this was information that they had aggregated in order to jumpstart this site, which is in and of itself a pretty big problem when you think about how your information is being shared and distributed and everything else out on the web. Huge problem. So we keep seeing these Elasticsearch sites exposed. What can you do? Number one is obviously put a perimeter around it. Put in IP address restrictions. Make sure that only the node that needs to access it, in your web apps application can reach it. Obviously, of course, if it's microservices, that could be a whole bunch of different things. But even if it's just restricted to your network, at least only that network can reach your Elasticsearch site, and that shrinks down your entire risk quite a bit. Now, we keep talking about the perimeter being dead and identity is a new perimeter, so don't forget that number two is to use a good username and password. Oftentimes when we build our services, we think, the services will just all talk to themselves. No. You want your services to be treated similar to like you would your users. You want to give them a username, a password, and make sure that username and password is authenticating to the resources they need, in this case Elasticsearch, and make sure that username and password is of sufficient complexity and is protected. These types of thoughts, like network restrictions and identity restrictions, form the basis of zero trust concept if you want to move your workloads, that is to say your web applications doing all the stuff, into a zero trust model. Now, above and beyond those basics, for preventative, you also have the ability to do detective. And the main thing there is to be scanning your environment, much like we started doing with S3 buckets, many different organizations, scanning your environment, looking for Elasticsearches, looking at the IP addresses your organization uses, looking at the environments they're standing up, looking for mistakes that people clearly are making again and again and again. Shadow server is one such option. Shadow server will allow you to pop in your network ranges, your IP address ranges, and get reports. They do the scanning for you. I'm not necessarily advocating that's the only one. That's just the one that I was talking to someone today who's using it. So there's one option for you. Now, another part of this is, we talked about prevention, we talked about detection, and another part of this is response. Interestingly, not surprisingly, I say blinking, interestingly, when this breach was discovered, they reached out to Tetrion. Tetrion did not respond. There was no response there. They actually had to go to the hosting company to shut down this data, like this big data exposure. Do you have a way in your environment such that if we found wide open Elasticsearches, we could contact you and you go, oh wow, that's a problem, and shut it down? Is there a response capability? Is there a communication path? Is there a workflow? That needs to be stood up. And that's not something technical, right? It's a process. It's something that needs to be established. But it needs to be set up so that if it does happen, an Elasticsearch or S3 bucket or whatever, the new technology is going to come out in another year when people are going to be making the same mistakes all over again, that your team can respond and get on it. Those are some of the ideas to prevent, detect, and respond to Elasticsearch being out there. And if you want to read more about this recent data exposure, this leak, this breach, whatever you want to call it, it's in the comments. Hit me up for any additional information, let me know. What are you doing to protect your data sources and your workloads? Knowing that as we build ever more services that communicate to ever more things, it's ever more likely that people are going to be making these mistakes. Comments, social media, hit me up.